Hey guys, I want to thank you for joining me today in Godspot. I want to talk to you about working on your EQ. In Matthew 7 verse 12, Jesus said, "So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." Now, the Bible's filled about references to EQ, about being angry and not letting the sun go down in your anger. In other words, get things right as soon as you can. And there's all sorts of things that are in there about moods and your emotions and not allowing them to get out of control. And here he's saying this is the basic law. Measure how you respond to others and do it in such a way, the same way you'd like to be treated. So sometimes when you talk about something like EQ, we hear a lot about what it is, but sometimes it's also good to hear about what it's not. When it's not a high EQ, but a low EQ, it can help us understand possibly where we're going wrong and get a better definition. EQ is all about emotional intelligence. So there are 9 behaviors that I believe that we practice that show that we have a low EQ. Number 1 is an exaggerated sense of self-worth. This is when you think you're a legend in your own lunchbox. You know, it's one thing to bring positive affirmation of people, but sometimes we believe it to the point where it's exaggerated. And we really think we're better than what we are, as if we have arrived. And people who practice this way, as if they know everything and have arrived, are people that have a really low EQ. Number 2, low EQ is feeling like everyone's against them. People with low EQ constantly feel like they're victims. It's as if no one ever understands them and everyone's just trying to gang up on them. And they're always using words like all the time, never, or always. So this is a real sign of a low EQ. Number 3, passive aggressiveness. Oh, I really don't like this. People with a low EQ find it extremely hard to communicate, especially if they've been hurt or offended. And if they get hurt by what has been said or done, it's interesting, they never come to you directly and speak to you about it. Instead, they like to drop as many hints as possible and try and bring you to a point where you can guess that something's not right. If you don't get their message, sometimes they'll even publish it as a passive-aggressive rant on social media. And I've seen this happen where people are upset at you and they start posting these memes and you think, my goodness, what have I done to upset them? And you think, what's wrong with that? It's a real passive-aggressive thing. I'll tell you something, I don't march that beat. I won't. I'm not a passive-aggressive person over people, and I'm not going to live to people being passive-aggressively with me either. Number 4, being blind to one's flaws. A person with low EQ believes that everyone else is bad and mean and selfish, but they can't even see it in themselves. They think it's everyone else's fault. They lack a self-awareness about themselves, so they're blind to their own flaws. Number 5, they like to avoid confrontation. If you wrong them, they'd rather ditch you than give you a chance to even explain what's happened, and they burn the bridge, so to speak, and they'll ghost you. We can't contact them. Number 6, they expect others to understand their moods. And so people with low EQ expect a lot from other people. And unfortunately, they're always disappointed because it doesn't work that way. And it's harder for people with low EQ to become accountable for their choices, their emotions. And this drains everyone else around them because everyone else has to be the bigger person. And that's a real problem. Number 7, the inability to sense what others are feeling. People with a low EQ don't know how to measure the room. They don't understand when people are responding and not liking what they're saying and people reacting negatively to them. And that's a real problem with a low EQ because you end up running off friends and infuriating people. Number 8, blaming others for poor communication skills. What is funny is most of the time, people low EQ are the ones with poor communication skills, yet they find a way to blame others. And finally, number 9, the inability to apologize sincerely. People low EQ see asking for an apology as a form of weakness. It's like they feel like they're agreeing with the ones who are wrong and flawed and immature, so they're not going to do it. They just won't do it. And so I really hope this helped you because emotional intelligence is just like any form of intelligence. The good news is it can be learned. And if you are exhibiting these behaviors, of low EQ behaviors, maybe it's time to change and take the higher ground. I hope this challenges you and causes you to think about the way you respond to people around you. Thanks for listening.